Hey everybody, thanks for joining in. Thanks for being a bit patient with us. We were doing mic checks and lighting check. On the lighting check, I won, but apparently I lost on the mic, so I don't know. It's even. It's 1-1. So we'll see. We'll see how we end the day. But thanks for tuning in. My name is Kevin Marco. I'm CEO at here at Coinmetro, and this is the Join AMA. Sometimes we call them Join AMA. Sometimes we call them Fireside Chats. I can see in the top right. This is a Join AMA. So this is a Join AMA. I'm here with Tarik from OctaSpace, and I'm going to let Tarik introduce himself, and then we'll get right to it. So, Tarik.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, I'm Tarik. I'm the Chief Product Officer at OctaSpace. I have, historically, I have a background in product management, project management. I've worked across the globe in a lot of companies and corporations previously. So, actually, to be honest, OctaSpace is my first foray into crypto. But I have been passionate about crypto for many years, and OctaSpace was started as a desire to decentralize, or in relation to decentralization and democratization of computing power. We felt that currently the environment as it is, computing resources are globally controlled by massive corporations mainly. And that's really true. The primary issue being that, a lot of them control the pricing, what kind of hardware you can have, even what you can run. And we felt that, this environment, it didn't really foster that kind of idea of freedom that we're trying to promote, right? So, and the whole ethos of crypto is that freedom, right? Democratization. And so applying that ethos, we spun up OctaSpace. But OctaSpace effectively is, a cloud service provider in a way, and as many are, however, with a twist. And why I say with a twist, it's a cloud service provider, but where we also create our own services. So, in a nutshell, if you think about it this way, a lot of service providers, they'll provide the hardware, and they'll provide an initial platform where you can then start, you require technical knowledge to spin up a lot of things, right? And you can do a lot of things, but the technical knowledge and there's a lot of, I guess, hoops you have to jump through to get something done. And our idea was, okay, well, great, let's have a platform. We can facilitate that aspect of it. But on top of that, let's also build our own services where it's a one-click launch, and it does what it says on the tin. So, one example I often use is rendering, right? I always said, well, why confine ourselves within, one space or one aspect of it? We've got the technical knowledge and the expertise. Why don't we just build our own services? And so in this case, we have technical directors and developers that have experience in rendering, for example, and in AI. And so we've gone down this route of, okay, now we've got the foundation, we've got the platform, let's build these additional services. So I don't know, some of you also know we have a VPN, right? So we have mobile apps, VPN apps. We're now building a desktop app as well. So the whole infrastructure and the concept is to leverage all the hardware. So, often people keep mentioning GPUs, but it's not just GPUs. We're leveraging the entire spectrum of the hardware, from CPU to RAM to space, and obviously we're going into the fora of this decentralized storage as well. So that's coming out this year as well. And as well as obviously the marketplace where we facilitate people to launch something of their own, custom. So kind of it's a broad spectrum of services, but with a twist.
Amazing. I think one of the reasons I got into, well, I guess you could say, I say crypto. I know some people get pissed off and use crypto to define everything. But anyway, they got involved with saying blockchain and crypto in general was because of the decentralization aspect, which is funny because I own a centralized exchange, I guess. But this idea that, democratization and trying to make sure everybody kind of owns their own stuff, and moving away from this idea that, one person, one individual, one corporation, whatever, can own you essentially, and then profit off of you without you even knowing.
It's the idea of that controlling pricing. It's I'll try to remember the word now, but a monopoly. It's a monopoly. They have a monopoly, and they regulate they regulate the market. And I have a why we're also with a twist, right? It's people that provide the hardware on our platform. We're not the ones providing the nodes or the services or the servers. It's users, and they also determine their own pricing. So we don't regulate any of that. It's kind of, hey, I've got some spare hardware. I'm going to provide it as a node on OctaSpace, and this is my price. Take it or leave it. And I think that's kind of fueling that ethos. But what that model does is also encourage competitive pricing, because people will undercut each other, right? But they have spare hardware. Well, why not leverage that? But there's an incentive to earn. So and one additional aspect I've actually realized over time as we've grown is it also incentivizes unique setups. People are not just you're often not seeing identical configurations, but people are actually trying to be more innovative what they're offering with a better CPU, more RAM, and so on, but different combinations. And I think that's also great as well.
Well, it's great that you allow them to do that, because there definitely are platforms that don't, even though they may be democratized or decentralized, they kind of have strict parameters on what can be offered. That obviously doesn't create an open market either. You want a free market, you should allow people to innovate, right? I mean, that's actually, what happens in market.
Another point that just occurred to me is that we also support a whole spectrum of different types of hardware, and not when I say that, you can even spin up a Raspberry Pi, literally a Raspberry Pi, and it can act like a VPN exit node. So it doesn't have to be some beefy hardware, right? You can use a Raspberry Pi, and I'll just offer it as a VPN exit node, and you're earning some money. Your little small device is doing that. Which I think is great, but we also support AMD and NVIDIA. We haven't limited it to one specific architecture, and I think that's also really important to note. So every single node has a purpose and will get used, which I think is also great. The primary, obviously, issue is that you also need to getting that momentum of gaining customers, and that's our biggest kind of focus has been. Since we've been launching, and why we've been launching these services, we're trying to entice users, right? Ultimately, we're a business, and it needs to generate revenue, and that's always been our primary focus. I mean, I do have to say, I love Coinmetro. It's a shame you guys aren't really that bigger. You should be, definitely. It's a great exchange. I mean, I think many don't do it justice, and it's so broadly available compared to many others that make claims that they're bigger, or they may have higher volumes, but considering how broadly available Coinmetro is, I think you guys really should be up there.
Yeah, I think every business has their struggles, and you try to you can be really good at some stuff, and then sometimes you let something slip by or whatever. But it's growing pains, right? That's what happens in business. But I feel that we're on the right path. It's just about sometimes you can be too early, sometimes you can be too late. Neither of those is any good. And so we were very early when it came to kind of doing things the right way, because nobody was, and it kind of made us weird. Like, wait a minute, I have to, provide identification, open an account. I don't have to do it anywhere else. Yeah, well,
I think, there is a lot. I mean, many that, I understand many reasons behind that. So, but, you guys are doing it by the book. And I think it's still important that there is an avenue for people who like that, they want to get into crypto. I think it's a great place for new people who are, especially concerned about, being rugged or anything else. I think, Coinmetro gives that assurance that
coming on to like new people. So I know, we're talking about what OctaSpace is and what you do, and about decentralization of computing power, etc. But for someone who maybe that all goes right over their head, like no idea, or is trying to figure out why. Okay, most people I think that are even curious in crypto know the difference, at least top level, of decentralized versus centralized, right? But they might not understand why that's a good thing. Why is that something that someone should look to support rather than going with Amazon, whatever, whoever. Big
I mean, I think obviously I mentioned primarily because of competitiveness. Also, no restrictions. We're not putting safeguards into or applying certain limitations to what you can do. Look, I've always been a fan of innovation, right? And I think when putting safeguards in or limiting what people can do, you are effectively stifling innovation. if we look at historically back, I mean, there's been conflicts, and obviously, all certain things or certain periods in time, innovation has soared or increased, and been fueled by many triggers. And I think especially, I mean, the world is going through a turmoil right now. However, if you notice on a parallel aspect, right, innovation, especially in the space of AI, as an example, is growing, extremely fast. But I think the issue is that, and I've mentioned this previously, that AI to a certain degree is being limited in many respects. A lot of that to do with the way AI is trained, and there's applications of cultural appropriations with data sets and things like that. And I think I often say, well, I'm not in agreement with that approach. While I'm not promoting any certainly something that's discriminatory or anything in that regard, I think limiting data or what you're feeding AI is not the best way or best approach. I think and we're talking about something that's meant to learn. And if you're going to only feed it certain levels of information, right? And that's, I think, where crypto projects such as ours come and step in, where you can actually do that without that being any stigma attached to that.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, generally speaking, the crypto and good projects in crypto, let's put it that way, all I think have this same ideology at play, in that one, limitations and all those things are not good for a free market, but at the same time, the aspect of decentralization means you don't have centralized power. You don't have someone holding all the data. And
right.
if you've been to the UAE any point in the last 15 years, data is the new oil, I think, it has been the saying there now for at least almost 2 decades.
Right.
And unfortunately, not most of us don't have unlimited supplies of oil underneath the backyard of our house, but we all have data, and we all interact with data. And so giving the power kind of back to every person individually, rather than one person so they can fly rockets to Mars. Not really. We should have rockets to Mars, but not necessarily because my
and electric cars, right? Self-driving electric cars.
Yeah, exactly.
Shall we check out some of the questions?
Yeah, I'm popping this one in because
awesome.
It's a good lead in. Just what's your biggest competition, do you think?
I keep getting asked this question, and it's a really difficult one to answer, and I'll explain why. Primarily because we are branching out into so many areas, right? So, I mean, you could, for example, rendering side, it could be RNDR and crypto, or it could be a lot of traditional render farms. But so let's say an example of RDR and many of these render farms, we've actually done a lot of analysis as part of our, as many businesses do, right? You look at who potentially are competitors in those individual spaces, and then you do market research. You actually experiment to test out, how their functionalities, how they work. And we went through many of these and looked at, okay, how do we work? What's the process? And what we found is many of these platforms don't really, they do the job, but they're extremely convoluted and difficult to use. And that's often an issue for many users, right? Especially artists. I don't know how many people know about the 3D art working space as an example, but often jobs are very time critical. They have commission jobs, and they have to get them out, to churn them out for their clients very quickly. So what we found was, okay, well, let's really cut this process down to a one-step process. And so, as an example, on our rendering platform, we've made a really straightforward, the ability to use it is very straightforward. It's integrated directly into the art tools. You press one button, it submits, and it immediately starts rendering. Then you can fiddle around, and you can scale to how many GPUs you want and so on. But that key area, and we've taken that ethos across our entire product range. So even a VPN is extremely easy to use. I mean, you could, for a VPN, you could be NordVPN. I don't know. There's plenty of out there. But we've had a lot of users, cancel their subscriptions because what they love is, we're a pay-as-you-go model. There is no subscription. You just pay for what you use. And that's across the board, right? In terms of computing power or anything like that, you just spend what you're ready to spend. That's it. And frankly, our VPN is so cheap. It really is one of the cheapest anyway. So it has a lot of uptake, and I think that is important because for any business, volume is key. Well, I know who I'm talking to, right? It's transaction volume, the amount of users you use. It's not all about having high margins. You're not having high profit margins here. But if you're getting the volumes and the amount of users, I think that's what matters. That's what drives, and that's what the kind of, I mean, as I said, I've got a lot of business background as well. So I've taken that kind of approach very much, to heart, and how we take things forward. So who's our biggest competition? Many. There are many competitions in different segments. But what I will say is we've done our research, and things that we release are much more simpler to use. And in many cases, while I don't want to brag, it's not bragging rights, it is even better to use. It's more efficient. But you can always get into some of the details if you want, at a later stage. If you want to cover a specific product in the future, we can always do that, and I can explain some of the differences and so on.
Awesome. I think somebody has a question coming up just like that, and they list a whole bunch of them, so get ready. But yeah, volume. Well, transaction volume is always going to be king in any transactional business. So just like Coinmetro for sure. And I understand the difficulty of a question like this, because I remember in the beginning we got a lot of these questions, and we were trying to do so many things or doing so many things that there's no competitor doing all the same things. And
right.
Thus you have kind of competitors in segments rather than a competitor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an often difficult, because you can always say no business is alike. Every business has. You could have someone that's in the same space as you, or even offering the same product, but if you have different pricing models and so on, it's not a apples to apples comparison often.
Yeah, I think it's it's your standard kind of step one VC question as well, like what makes you different from others. But at the same time, it's kind of like asking that you as a human being, like what makes you a different human being?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah. So, but it's always, that question's always there. I've never been sitting in front of any VC in my life that either the first, maybe second question is, so what makes you any different than, and then they name a competitor, and then you gotta, well, it is what it is, right? At least you don't get compared to Binance. I mean, that's good. That's good, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Coolest case, I guess, use case, I imagine.
Coolest case. I think coolest use case is we get, it's rendering mainly because of we had a lot of assets rendered by a visual effects studio for they've been rendering assets for a game called Destiny 2. I'm really in love with those. When I see those look absolutely amazing. We recently released like a compilation video because we're in touch with that VFX studio, and they send us like a folder with all the videos after they've rendered all the artworks, and then we compiled them. But yeah, that game is stunning, and it's very popular. I think it's actually trending #1 right now. But yeah, those assets are heavy renders, and seeing those being realized on Octa render is absolutely amazing. That's my favorite use case. Honestly.
How much like compute power are you guys currently sitting on?
Well, let me have a look. In fact, I just type info. I know
I've tried to render not on OctaSpace. I gotta be fair.
Well, I mean, right now it's 220 GPUs. From a GPU's perspective, 1,200 CPUs, 5.1 terabytes of memory, and so on. But I think it's important. There is a specific providing nodes on our platform isn't. You can't just. I mean, you could provide a mining rig or something, but on 1x rises and things like that. But we actually do requests if you want to provide your platform for rendering. It needs to have a certain amount of RAM. It needs to have. It can't be on 1x rises, for example. Certain use cases really need specific configurations. AI trading, for example, doesn't work on a 1x mining rises, as an example, and they will fail because inference is very high data throughput. It's running those training, at non-stop very quickly, and so doing it through those low speeds isn't going to work. So we put more onus on the actual quality of the hardware as opposed to just quantity. So I have to say, the number of GPUs is very arbitrary. If you're just looking at a raw number, you could have 2010 GTX 1060s. It's meaningless, right? If they're not quality hardware.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's another thing about business. People, and to give you the kind of equation that we get, it's a very similar thing that we get would be basic trading volume, because we absolutely make money on trading volume for sure. But as a business, it's literally not even 1, 2, or 3 of our largest revenue sources.
Right.
And so the business can be doing amazingly well and look from a volume perspective that it might not be, and it could be vice versa. Could have a massive amount of volume and actually not be, paying the bills, so to speak. So I think every business has those caveats, where people.
I know, but people tend to, sometimes look at things a little bit more simplistically, and they see this value and say, oh, well, I mean, you've seen recently that IONET launched, and they make claims of thousands and thousands of GPUs. Question is, how many of them actually get used? And I could dwell into some of that. I've looked into some of that, and there's a lot of things, but they are a type of project that really are mainly promoting to investors only. They're not looking for users, and that's unfortunate because and it's a mentality that many take. And we've been trying to take a little different approach, and we've been a lot more geared towards marketing to end users. I think, I want to highlight, we actually have an outreach team. They do cold sales, cold calls, cold emails, contacts, direct outreach to, for example, artists or to other users or AI training academics who might want to use our platform. They actually do, and they've been doing a fantastic job because they've been, bringing on new customers. So, which has been really important, and they're a really valuable team for us.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I think at the end of the day, when you're a kind of decentralized system, especially with a decentralized network in any way, everybody's an end user.
Yeah, well, that's true, but I can safely say most investors are not users. The majority of investors use our VPN. That's what they can do because that's something that's very useful for everyone. But certainly, certain things are niche in computing market, and you've got to reach out to those niche areas.
Yeah, or they maybe do it's 3 a.m. and I can't sleep, so I'm rendering random ridiculous things on my phone because I'm sure there's a few of them doing that. I don't know. We
are building some really cool tools though, some that they can play around with for especially AI. We're building some AI tools right now, and we reached out to a lot of our community and said, let's hear what you would want to use in AI. It's not just a chat; it's an entire experience. If you wanted to recommend products, it'll actually display products and where you can buy from and things like that. But a lot of them said, as usual, I want to see charts. I wanted to do an analysis of a crypto project, and we've taken that on board, and that's what we're also going to build. So they'll be actually able to use it. So I mean, I want to also get them to use these tools, right?
Yeah, I'd like to see that in our dashboard actually. So that'd be nice. So here's this. Since you just brought that up, I figured this is a nice question to throw out at you. So, next big milestone. So I guess that might be one of them. Maybe I don't know how big of a milestone that is in comparison to others, but that's.
Well, this is also tricky to answer because we work in an agile way, and I don't know how many people are familiar with agile approach. So every year we define a strategic roadmap. Right. I'm often, I've worked in program management, project management for many years. You can feel free to head over to LinkedIn and you'll see on my CV, I've managed many projects across the globe. And often, the way that initiatives are broken down to strategic aims. So strategic aims, you want to explore certain areas. With that being said, we plan things in increments. So in a year, we have five increments, and we break those down into sprints and so on, but we plan each increment. And what we're doing is, while we're working on one increment, we're planning for the next one. Now, in relation to what's the next big milestone, well, why I mentioned this agile is we're constantly releasing new things. It's a continuous improvement. And so you could say, okay, well, the next one will be a new release of our marketplace, or it could be a new desktop VPN app, or it could be a release of the Unreal Engine support for our rendering support, or a rendering solution, or it could be our new AI tool, or it could be decentralized storage. All these things are what's going to happen this year and what we've been working on to expand on. So there's not one specific. For me, every single one is a milestone. So if we're looking at it from a development perspective, obviously I understand, many are also from an investor perspective looking at exchanges and things like that, and that is something we're looking at. I don't want to bring up other exchanges obviously on a Coinmetro discussion, but but it's not something that's off the radar. So there's many things going on in the background, but as I said, there's no one milestone for us. Every single new release and update is a new milestone. I'm very excited about our marketplace and the newer AI tools. That's my biggest passion right now.
Very cool. And from like a biz dev perspective, is there something that you can talk about or want to mention about any type of, maybe it's not even something you're working on the biz dev side, but maybe it's something you kind of are hunting for or will be hunting for, like you want to be able to partner with X type of engine?
We are partnered with another project called Dynex, and there was I was on a live stream yesterday with them, and we're doing some cool stuff with them as well. So they do AI training, but at a quantum level, and they use their blockchain to actually do that inference, which is mind blowing. And we're working on a joint initiatives where, because they're trying to seek more enterprise customers. Our partnership with them will help us bring those on board to also use our platform. So they'll be able to train the AI on their end, but for example, generate an example, for example, simulations, so fluid simulations or things. So it's a lot more scientific field. And what we want to do is render those on our platform. So they do the data processing, suddenly it gets sent over to us, and we're doing those simulations and actually generating those simulations on our rendering platform. And we've already started a proof of concept on that. So that's something really exciting. And but obviously, I'm not promoting that too much. We did do a deep dive a little bit more in yesterday's stream. I don't want to take up the entire stream about that. But yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Although I'm not the nerd. My devs are, and they understand each other. It kind of goes in one ear and the other most of the time. So
yeah. Well, as long as some sticks, you'll be all right. Yeah, that's all right. But yeah, that's okay. So that I think anyway, that sounds interesting, because obviously providing kind of the service you provide, there's a ton, not even just in crypto, to be honest, of companies looking for compute power, which leads us to this question from somebody else in the audience. So, do you have plans to provide compute to projects like, and I guess it doesn't really matter, those two specific projects or any other one, but is there any type of plan in the future to potentially provide like wholesale compute power to other?
This is the issue is, yes and no. Why? First of all, let's go with the no. Why no? The issue is that with this sort of, you would need some sort of fixed term agreement, right? The issue with our model is that compute pricing isn't fixed or controlled by us. So I could strike a deal, but it's the best deal I could say is, okay, you could buy a certain amount of Octa to spend. But as we don't control, I can't guarantee you'll get this much compute power for that. And I think that would be a struggle with that. So yes, I could certainly explore that, and it's not out of the realms of possibility. But it's with the business model that we have, or the way we operate, it would be a little bit more of a difficult one to come to an agreement with, or the exact terms.
Yeah, though, what you mentioned, especially, with a marketplace kind of having kind of wholesale OTC, where companies can buy, let's say, a big bag of Octa and then decide, let's just whatever, X percentage off the market price, just whatever the percentage is. And then they're speculating basically on the future cost of usage of compute power.
I mean, there is, in terms of how we looked at working with the Dynex flow, there will be a revenue sharing model between Dynex and us, and how that's done. And ultimately, it will result, as one example is, they have a subscription-based model. So customers will buy. And as I said, we've focused initially, when I said to you volume, a lot of our focus was on the average Joe. We wanted a lot of end users, because I think, taking a step back, usually projects that immediately off the bat focus often on enterprise customers immediately is in my opinion, a very, very risky strategy. Enterprise agreement or creating something that enterprise users will use is a lot more difficult, especially when you say crypto. Crypto is very volatile, right? And as I'm sure you know how business works, right? When you come to an agreement, you have fixed costs, you have certain retention agreements, and so on, and you have to work within the confines of that. If you're having to issue invoices and you tell them, oh, wait, our price has gone up, wait, of our coin or token, and then you can't revise those contracts. That just doesn't work that way. Then you've got invoicing and so on, and there's a lot of complications in relation to that. So I think but as I said, in relation to this question, it's not outside the realms. I think we would have to figure out how best to approach that. If we are approached, we're always open to negotiate and come to some sort of working agreement, right?
I would almost look at it as like someone in the oil trading business will buy oil futures, so that when they're trading in the future, if oil price goes extremely high, then they've already locked in a price. And if it goes lower, well, they're going to pay a bit more, but at least they can they already know what their cost base is between now and a year from now.
Right.
And I would say the same thing, similar thing could be said for, even though crypto is volatile, that's true. Just as an example, because this would be kind of interesting, even for maybe not, well, even for Coinmetro, to be honest, because we have things coming down the pipe that we would need compute power for as well. So let's assume you tell me I can buy 20,000 Octa tokens for. Now, please, nobody take this as like, this is just me throwing out random numbers, just so that don't take this as like, this is the price of Octa, or this is not an actual deal happening. So
you're buying it though. That's good. Good to hear.
Yeah. So let's say this. Okay. So I'm going to buy 20,000, Octa, and I'm going to get 50% off current price. Let's just, whatever. Let's say it was that €2, I'm going to pay €1. Okay. Now there's a chance it could go lower. Okay, sure. If it's a super volatile market, something happens, great. It could. But it could also go higher. And so I'm gonna buy this bag of tokens as basically like me buying futures to hedge my risk in the future of compute price going higher. And I'm betting on the fact that the token itself, the value of the token, is going to go up faster than the value of the compute power. Yeah. I think that could be interesting, to be honest. It's kind of like buying futures to hedge out future cost.
Yeah.
I mean, you could lose too, that's for sure.
True.
Yeah. But could be interesting. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack.
No worries.
Okay, let's throw this one up, because I think you mentioned something at the beginning, which, well, you mentioned that kind of the biggest thing right now is, well, finding, getting clients and scaling on the client side. But
yeah,
I guess, is there something behind that that's like the biggest? Is it marketing? Is it the crypto element? Is there something that's kind of makes it more difficult to find?
No, I think we've been doing a great job. We actually have seen a lot of adoption, and I mentioned is specifically the highest adoption has been really for rendering and VPN, but that's because we've been targeting those sectors specifically. We've seen a little bit of uptake on the AI training side, so we do have some guys training AI, but they're not massive volumes. I think that's a really, really niche area, to be honest. And regardless of the growth of AI, I think there's not that many people that actually understand how to trace base models and do inference and things like that. It's quite and I've dabbled a little bit. So, but in terms of scaling, I think that's why we're releasing a new marketplace. The marketplace is meant to be very, very simple to use. The idea here is, you'll have a marketplace where you'll have just a list of apps. We'll call them apps. You click an app, and then you choose the hardware, and it'll actually recommend. We actually have, and this is going to be exclusive, but what we've done is we actually have a little on the new one. We have an AI guide where you can type in what do you want to do or achieve, and then you type it out, and it'll actually recommend you hardware, which is something I've never seen anyone do.
No,
this is what I mean. This is trying to, these are unique selling points, right, of the platform, and so all these little things will really drive that engagement. I want people to stick around. What I want the platform is to be addictive, and that's the same with what I mentioned about the AI tool. This isn't just a chat GPT 2.0, right? It's an entire experience, because the idea here is to, is to be like Twitter, is to be like Facebook, is to be where it becomes addictive and people don't want to leave. They want to keep coming back, and that's that. So that we've been doing a lot of market research. There's a lot of psychological aspects to our approach as well. And please don't take that the wrong way. We're not trying to manipulate people, but we are trying to influence them. Obviously, I mean, that's how products work. The idea is client retention, right? We want them to keep coming back. And that's what we're trying to build, and make things that people will use as often as possible. And make it an easy entry. I mean, there are many that do AI generation. We're trying to do better. We're trying to even do video generation. So there's a lot that will come out, especially this year. I mean, that's why decentralized storage will appeal to many people. VPN appeals to many people. The AI tools will appeal to many people. So there's a lot of opportunity here. And we're obviously also doing a lot of market research for next year already, looking at what we're going to plan and strategic roadmap. So usually by the end of the year, we plan out the strategic roadmap for the following year. So, and that's, we've already started some of that. And you have to continuously innovate. That's why I said to you we apply an agile approach, because planning out a roadmap right now, let's say at the start of January till the end of December, is very rigid, because markets change, demands change. You have to continuously innovate and look at what the latest innovations are, developments, and look at how you can target those segments for, and something that you can use that opportunity or movement. And so it's really important. Within a space of a year, a lot can change, and business priorities have to be able to change.
Yeah. You have to be the master of the pivot, because if you can't pivot, you die.
Right.
Unless you're really lucky. I think I've probably talked to 1,000 people in my life that have some level of, business acumen that I would say is, equivalent or enough to actually succeed. And I've never met anyone. I might have met one person in my life, actually, that started something, never changed what they were doing, and it worked. But that was, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And in today's day, AI, crypto, I mean, even crypto in general, for that matter, anything to do with tech, 6 months is a lifetime.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah.
Can you? I mean, if you think about the innovation that happened between, like, when I was in school, we had the TI-82, right? When I was in high school, the scientific calculator, and the speed of that calculator at the time was, I mean, we had word processors, and then the TI-82, and the TI-82 was faster than the word processor. And the time it took to get to that level where you could actually play a video game like Doom on a computer took about 4 years. Yeah. And now that amount of innovation happens in probably 30 minutes.
Well, I've been around. I look often young. People associate me, think I'm younger, but I'm actually relatively old. But I've been. I mean, I remember. My first PC was a 286. So I'm pretty old.
It's amazing how the snowball effect. But now the snowball forms before you even realize it's a snowball. I mean, it's not. It's already. It starts snowing. The snowball's done. I mean,
but when you've seen through the decades just how quickly. I mean, you look at just even cell phones, right? How quickly we've got to where we are right now, and that is why you have to continuously adapt, and you have to plan business. Business objectives have to change based on market trends. So
I guess the cool thing is, because I'm definitely a vision guy myself. The cool thing with being a vision guy in tech is that what would be a stretch goal in any other industry. Like, let's try this and just throw, I mean, literally, like, just throw something random out there. And within a year, somebody did it.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean,
regardless of what you think.
That doesn't mean you can't do it better, Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's amazing, because I'm sure if you're in like the trucking business and you make up some crazy, lofty vision, yeah, nobody's getting it, right? But here, it's somebody's going to do it. If you don't do it, somebody's going to do it, regardless of how.
Yeah.
big it seems.
But that's a great thing, and that's why I mentioned to you right at the start why we want to fuel that innovation, why we don't want to stifle innovation with limitations and guards. That's why we built what we built. We do feel that we are contributing to scientific advancement. It's not just here's a money-making machine, and that's just not what it is. But yeah.
Amazing. I'm going to pop this one up. Backtracking a bit of the questions, but I think this is good lead into.
Gosh, this is a loaded question, isn't it?
Yeah. Here's all your comparisons. So you don't have to take all these, but
no, it's okay. It's all right.
Basically, asking about advantages over some different systems, different protocols, different setups that have some similarity, I guess, or servicing some similar type of clientele with one of your revenue streams, let's say.
Yeah, so, this is different. Well, many of these encompass different areas and are not all the same. I mean, Flux obviously many. So Flux is really more so like a hosting as a service, as opposed to compute as a service. How we do it. I don't know if anyone's really deep dived into some of these, but I have into quite a few of them. AIOZ I looked at briefly, so I can't really comment too much on it. It wasn't as clear, so I didn't do too much deep dive. I can render, I can answer. Filecoin, I can answer because we can't compare right now in terms of decentralized storage. I think I would say ask your judgment once we release our decentralized storage chain. Cash, there is a lot of similarity. And we are similar in that regards to a cash. It's a similar concept, very similar. There are some aspects that we do better. Obviously, a cash has been around for a while, and what they have done is they've saturated the marketplace with a hell of a lot of different apps. But the way they launch, it's not as flexible or dynamic. Likewise, they also don't have a lot of their own services, right? As I mentioned to you at the start, we build our own services, so if you think about it, our Cash Plus, we're a Cash Plus, where we also have what Cash can do, but add on top of that additional of our own services that we're building and releasing. A Cash really is just the bare bones compute, right? With just a bunch of mostly open source apps that you can launch. RNDR or render, our rendering platform is very well. We work differently. It works much simpler. I've tested out the render platform. I could deep dive into. The issue is the way their platform works. Render is owned by a corporation, just to be clear, Otoy, and they only work with one specific rendering engine, which is Octane Render. And that to be able to use RNDR, you have to purchase a subscription to a license from their parent company called Otoy. And then to be able to sign into RNDR, you have to have that subscription from their parent company, and then you can only render using that specific rendering engine. We're not requiring anyone to do subscriptions. We also have support, but they're currently exploring support for Blender. We actually have that. One of the issues and I know they're exploring it is how to scale properly because of certain engines and how render scales. My guys have experience in that. They've actually worked in a lot of those artist fields, so they're both technical and artists, and they've managed to bypass that issue. So they are different. We support different rendering engines, but the difference is we can actually easily scale to new rendering engines, no issues. And as I said, we're also going to be looking to support Unreal Engine this year as well. I think, so in general, there is a lot of differences. I mean, as I mentioned yesterday, I think one thing it's important is you should judge us based on what users say and testimonials, right? It's very easy to potentially, say something negative about someone else. I mean, ultimately, I'm going to be biased. Let's be honest, right? It's my platform, my products. So whatever I say is going to be very extremely biased. But what I would say is we have a lot of testimonials from users, and I think that's something that we really pushed hard. And you can even see that, go into our Twitter, profile, and you'll see lots of comments from artists, and you'll see them actually tagging us. We're not asking for that; they're doing it, and I think that has really, really enriched us. I mean, it's also great for marketing, I've got to admit, but it's great seeing that something that's been produced on our platform, and that's also demonstrating the adoption. So you're seeing both aspects, both and feel free to reach out to some of the artists. I mean, they're willing to, they'll love to give you feedback. If you DM them and ask them how was your experience, I'm sure they'll be love to tell you. But we have also asked some of the visual effects studios, because obviously they're bigger, for testimonials, and we've got a lot of them giving us testimonials, and a lot of them, some of them where they say we've incorporated Octa render into our workflow. Also ask our Telegram group or community how the VPN is, and many of them will swear by it. So our VPN is also one that is not restricted in many countries where most VPNs are restricted, and it also has a high popularity. I would say popularity, especially amongst the Chinese community and others, where they have certain restrictions in the country. So I think that's great. That was a little bit of a convoluted answer, wasn't it?
No, but I think the ending is perfect, in that if you really want to know how we compare to these other services, ask our users, ask the people who use us, because they're the ones that are really digging in. And if someone spends the time to give a negative review, well, it's very easy for someone to give a negative review, but when someone spends the time to give a positive one, that person is knows usually what they're interacting with, because it's hard to get someone to say a nice thing about something.
Right.
It's really easy to get somebody to say a negative.
Exactly. And I'm actually planning to create a Trustpilot profile for us.
We can compete. Let's see who. I like Trustpilot can be a bit tricky, man. I got to tell you, there's like a whole Trustpilot mafia of people that make fake reviews. So
I'm not. Well, I mean, I wasn't aware of that aspect of it, but okay. But I was planning on Trustpilot. I mean, well, if there's any others you can recommend, feel free to recommend.
They all have their, but Trustpilot, you gotta be on point with Trustpilot. But I like Trustpilot. I think it's probably one of the better ones, because they try to do the right thing. Let's put it that way. Other review sites just let anything and everything, and don't police, and that doesn't work either.
Well, my whole approach has been building legitimacy. It's growing that legitimacy, and that's why I went to something like Trustpilot.
Yeah, makes sense. Especially if you have users that are willing to give feedback.
Yeah, we do.
Perfect. Especially having a trusted third party definitely makes sense, for sure. This is more for Coinmetro, but I figured I'd give you a rest.
Your question.
I'm going to answer this one fast. So Octa sounds like an amazing project. Thanks, Luke. I want to buy some, but there's no way to get USD on Coinmetro. When will I be able to do this? So, welcome to the amazing world of international banking with the US dollar, Luke. I don't know how long you've been with us, but we had US dollar banking for, almost since we launched our first product. But through that time, we've seen maybe 6 or 7 different relationships, and of those 6 or 7 relationships, I mean banking relationships and payment platforms. 2 of them have gone bankrupt, and 1 was shut down. 2 were shut down by regulators. So yeah, it's not the easiest thing to accomplish. We have been back and forth. We were back and forth, actually, one of the biggest providers in the industry. And then as soon as we finished, they lost their US dollar banking partner, like the day of. They're like, congratulations. 10 minutes later, oh, by the way, we just lost our banking partner. So that's kind of what USD has been looking like. We have been kind of putting all the boots on the ground that we could to make sure we can get this done as fast as possible. We have just gotten some good news about US dollars for legal entities. So if you have a corporate account out of the US, that's going to happen relatively soon, next weeks, and probably another month or 2 before we have, let's say, USD banking for normal people. And that's because, banks are banks, and US dollar banks or US dollar banks. And let's just say it's not the easiest thing in the world. And the regulators don't help. So that's it. That's my shorter, not so long answer. But thanks, Lou. Thanks for saying OctaSpace is great. That's why we listed. So,
I think so too.
yeah, of course. I mean, he's not biased. So
no.
Yeah. I'm not biased. I think it's good. Actually, I have a limit order waiting in the books. If somebody would like to fill that, I'd be happy. Let's see. Let's see. This one's an interesting one. So, who's the perfect client for an Octa product? I guess you have a lot of products, so maybe pick one.
Yeah, rather than. I mean, an artist, a user for, I don't know. I mean, well, you could use it for anything. I don't know. Actually, actually, that's a good. Best way to do, as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to build something that an average Joe will use. And I know I mentioned it earlier in our discussion. So maybe this question was asked before, a lot earlier before we discussed some of those aspects. And we talked about, how I'm building certain things like the AI tools where we want something that's going to drive engagement and get as many average Joe users as possible. So we're not trying to just target the niche segment. But also I mentioned around the partnership with Dynex and what we're doing to also get on board, enterprise customers. So it's a really, really broad audience, but with specific niche audiences as well, tools that are for specific niches. So, as I said, artists, but, we're seeing a great uptake already. So there is no such thing as a perfect client. Everyone's a potential client or customer even.
Yeah, that's you, Conrad. So
yeah. So
what are you waiting for? I mean, time's wasted. Let's see. So this is a 2-part question. So get ready for this. I think it's like a 6-part question, but I'm going to leave it at 2, and then we can hit the other ones in a minute. So I'll start reading this one. I'll pop it off the screen, and I'll pop on the second part. You just got to remember this one. So aside from your VPN, that seems great, but should be available in more places like Dubai. I guess Victor is based in Dubai. So most of the comments I've seen are about your offline pre-rendering. And then how much future do you see on this when real-time rendering, like Unreal Engine, which you just mentioned, I think, is getting so much better to the point that a single video card can produce commercial-grade content?
Okay. So rendering is a very specific area, right? And when you're saying offline rendering, or at least you're rendering on the cloud, there is different rendering engines for different things. Unreal Engine is also very unique. It's not for every single use case. Blender is also unique. It's not for every single use case. Different render engines are for specific, they're tailored for specific things. A lot of animation studios, for example, don't use Unreal Engine. Or they use, even Pixar, for example, use their own rendering engine. These are very different and specific areas. So it's not much better. It's for specific use cases. As I said, even Unreal Engine, even with real-time render, you're still going to have a lot of compute power, especially if you have a massive scene. Don't forget, scenes are based on frames. So you're just like in the old days where you take a flip book, right? And you draw a frame, and then you're flipping through this flipped frame, and you get an animation. That's exactly what rendering is. You're rendering frames. Now, when it comes to that, you have a whole load of post-processing after rendering as well. And you generate different depth maps and z-depth and so on, and layers effectively. And a lot of compute power goes into that. Some things you can do in Unreal Engine, many things you can't. So I think this boils down to, well, ask artists why those tools are being used if Unreal Engine is the best, right? It's not. It's different. It's used for different things. And I can even safely tell you that many artists create assets in other tools and then import them into Unreal Engine, same as they do into Unity, right? Unity is also another one. So having some of that understanding, it's a very, very niche area. So it's, not everything can be rendered the same way. That's all I would say. So I would say not a single video could produce commercial grade content. I certainly guarantee you that, just 3D art, a big, very complex 3D model with bone structures, then skin layers and everything else. No, it's not that simple. With all due respect, in relation to VPN, I'm not sure what you mean by it's not available in Dubai. You can certainly use it, unless you mean there's no exit nodes in Dubai. I wasn't sure what that is. I've not had anyone from the Emirates say I can't use the VPN. So, but feel free to reach out to me if you are having that issue, and we'll look into that.
Yeah, I guess asking about nodes in Dubai, but Dubai has restrictions, so I'm not sure why
it shouldn't matter. A lot of our VPNs are residential exit nodes, so it won't know it's a server. It's not, so they won't even have it on a list to block. That's why I mentioned, I don't believe. Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, thank you, Victor. I think Victor has one or two other questions on here, so we're going to see Victor again in a second. So a little bit about tokenomics. Can you explain tokenomics of Octa?
Oh, you're asking me about value of a coin. I can tell you about the tokenomics.
That's why I stopped at tokenomics. I didn't read the rest.
I won't answer the latter part of that. But in relation to the tokenomics, we have obviously a fair launch, and I mean we can post a monetary policy actually, but basically OctaSpace is done in obviously a proof of work, right? I just wanted to see if I could share my screen. I don't know if I can, or if maybe you can you bring it up? That might help me talk through it. It's a little bit difficult to talk through.
I'm not sure what's going to happen to our layout.
Actually, don't. So, okay. So, look, the way it is, we have blocks mined, like any other proof of work, right? There's a maximum 48 million supply. And we have what we call eras, or you could call them halvings if you want. So specific milestones, there's a split or a reduction in block size. Now, in terms of blocks, there is a certain amount that most of the amount goes to the miner. Then there's an element that goes to a staker, and then there's an element that goes to our development fund. So that's how it's split at the moment, and that's how it's going to be split. But every specific block. I mean, we're currently in DNEPR era, so that started at block 4.5 million, and it ends at block 6 million, which is in about 200 days. And currently, total block is 4, where 1.85 goes to miner, 1.75 goes to staker, and 0.4 goes to our dev fund. So that's kind of it. And then there's obviously a max supply. And then after that, we're going to be switching to a different consensus. But yeah,
very good. Yeah, we can leave off the last.
I mean, I could also mention that I think currently I can say what the current supply is. The circulating supply right now is 30.8 million. So there's 18 million coins left to circulate, and the max supply will be reached in 2027.
Awesome. Thank you, Tarik. Appreciate that. Let's jump into this one. So I'm going to try. We're just about coming an hour. We got about 4 questions, so we'll try to breeze through. Let's see.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I can answer this quick one very quickly. Okay, so we're in the new marketplace. We are going to be implementing the ability for users to set pricing based on a fixed fiat value equivalent, and Octa price that's displayed will change based on that. So if users want to set a fixed price based on a fiat equivalent, they'll be able to do that. So it's a valid question, but right now it's obviously its price fluctuates in different. Exactly. Most attention and development. Well, attention we're receiving, as I mentioned earlier, rendering and VPN mostly. That's where a lot of our users are. But in terms of development, I've mentioned some of those areas before, where especially AI tools that we're really looking to see, and also really simple, marketplace and decentralized storage.
Okay, boom. Here's another one. How are you guys funding your development? Are you sustaining?
It's a great question. So as I mentioned, we have a development fund. So a certain amount of the block goes to the development fund. And right now, but obviously that can't be a sustainable long term, right? We're not looking to be here for the next 3 years. We're looking to be here for the next decade or so. We're trying to make a mark on our on this space. So a lot of that, once we're looking also transactions. Why I mentioned to you, we're looking to onboard as many users, because remember one thing: we're working to a deadline, and the deadline is 2027 when max supply will be reached. At that point, there is no more topping up of the debt fund, and a lot of that will be user transaction volume. So we'll be taking a percentage of the actual transactions or on the marketplace or people renting services. So yeah, but a lot of that I also want to clarify: we're not a token, we're a coin. We're now one blockchain. So tokens are what L2s. They're launched on the token blockchain. By the way, we do actually have projects launching on our blockchain. I know that's often not kind of missed, but it's a point that often mentioned. We actually do have a lot more projects launching on the blockchain.
Very cool. Yeah. I remember explaining token versus coin way back in the day. I'm glad that it's become a little bit more, standardized, but still people do it all the time.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Token is on somebody else's blockchain, basically. Let's see. So this is a two-parter. So I'm going to read this one. We'll jump into the second one. Victor's good at two-part questions, man, but they're usually pretty good questions. To conclude, why does compute, rendering, and storage need crypto or a token? Given that because of simple physics, it's impossible to compete in power, efficiency, speed to centralized equipment, and for the same reasons, they could also win in price against you if needed, are the only, of course, important advantages: decentralization, security, privacy in any part of the world.
I can answer this, definitely. So if we're looking at this, well, one, yes, there's obviously many benefits when crypto. One, and I mentioned it yesterday. First of all, from a transaction perspective, fees are very small. It's obviously global. Sending money across the globe can be complicated, obviously, and the speed of transactions, very low transaction fees, anonymity. Now, in terms of decentralization, obviously, there's those aspects where we also don't. I mean, I mentioned also one of the other aspects is centralized services will limit what you can do. They put certain guards in. We're not trying to do that, obviously, and I mentioned to you about the innovation. Now, in relation to server-grade hardware, I can get into some of that, but actually server-grade hardware, especially, for example, for rendering, can actually be slower than retail cards, the 4090s, for example. I can actually demonstrate that easily for you. But actually, centralized server cards can be much slower. They might be great for AI training, but they're not the best for rendering, as an example. So that's not always the case. It's not that simple, Victor. But we can certainly. I believe I've actually had this discussion with you on Coinmetro Telegram group at some point or another. Whether they are willing to undercut us. Sure, they could try and do that, but I think they would be operating at a loss. I mean, considering these are vast corporations with extremely high operating expenditures, I highly doubt they'd be willing to lower their rates to compete with the likes of OctaSpace. I mean, we're still relatively small in that regard, and I don't think they feel they're going to feel us or consider us as a threat.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I would also say, when it comes to, in certain industries, latency is a thing, right? So, and that's where, if I'm centralized where I have, two servers sitting next to each other and they're connected by a fiber optic cable, then obviously I'm going to have less latency than jumping between decentralized nodes.
Oh, absolutely.
However, most things in life, speed is not the first thing that applications need. In most applications, speed is not number one. In trading, you could argue speed is number one. But in every other, including rendering, etc., it's not necessarily speed that someone's going to look for as a deciding factor.
Well, I mean, look at it this way. I mean, for the way we've actually, solved the rendering issue. I mean, if you imagine, we are scaling rendering across nodes across the globe. And it's pretty fascinating how we've done that, where all the frames are being rendered and then distributed and kind of merged together. But we've managed to do it in a great, fantastic way. That's why I said our rendering platform is really unique, and it is something that's it's a technological marvel. I mean, but that's a lot mainly down to our architects and developers. Really, it's not obviously nothing down to me. But I think it's great the way they've managed to do that and also scale. I mean, often one of the issues with rendering is, efficiency. So, as an example, if you have a machine with 4 GPUs, right, as standalone, if you're trying to render, often rendering engines don't have the best way of utilizing all 4 GPUs. So if you have a bunch of frames, often what you have is all 4 GPUs working on one frame, and then working on the next one, and working on the next one. But the issue is, one is utilized 100%, the next ones are worked 25%. What we've done is we've managed to split out where it detects how many GPUs are on a bunch of nodes. So let's say you have 4 here and 2 here. It'll distribute four frames to this one and 2 to this one, and all 4 GPUs are rendering 4 frames, and these ones 2. And the way that's distributed is just amazing. It's,
so I guess because where I was going was that speed might not be the case, but there's ways to optimize.
Yes,
that become like custom bespoke optimization that big companies don't, excuse my French, but don't give a shit about, because they don't have to.
But let me, I'm going to come across as controversial here a little bit. So AI training is speed and latency is extremely important.
Yeah.
And now I recently saw, there's a big project IONET that was launched. And so distributed AI training is a lot more of a complex thing to do. And frankly, latency plays a key role in achieving that. Or if you have latency, you're going to struggle with training. And so IONET was recently released, and honestly, they use an off-the-shelf solution called Ray. Now, Ray works, but it's very slow. It's very slow. So I don't see the benefit. We can deploy Ray on our platform, and I don't see the benefit of, people will always still go back to, I would rather have a node with 5 GPUs with 48 gigs each of VRAM as opposed to going down that route. And I think people will find that. But that's generally, I think people don't. I understand certain people. Obviously, Victor has some understanding of technology here, so he's unique. But many people don't, and so they'll take things off face value, unfortunately, and that's what it is. What it's like in this industry.
And Ray, I think, is older than me. To be honest,
so you're familiar with it as well. But it's the frank excuse of my French, is dog shit slow. So
random access information. I don't know. I forget what Ray's information something.
Yeah. But it's an off-the-shelf solution. It exists. All they've done is just deployed that, and they've reskinned it in a very nice way, and they're doing a great marketing job, obviously.
Yeah, well, hats off to them, I guess. But anyway, when you cut corners, people find out at some point. I mean, that's how things work. I think we made it through all the questions, so congratulations, Tarik. That was quite an accomplishment. Great answers. Anything else you want to leave people with before we sign off?
Thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate this. I hope you enjoyed some of our ramblings. It was good. Obviously, you didn't mention the raffle, Kevin.
Oh my God! See, he's not even employed by Coinmetro, and I thought somebody probably sent me a Slack message while I've been here. But yeah, you're right. Thank you very much, Tarik. So, we have a current ongoing Octa raffle. I think there's 400 and something tickets currently that have been acquired by clients. I think you need to trade a very minimal amount of Octa to get a raffle ticket, and there's 1,500 Octa up for grabs. So, I should even know the date that it ends, but let me see here.
Was it 17th?
I think it's the 17th. Yeah, that's a date I had in my head as well. Yeah. So, 17th. Yeah, ending on Monday on the 17th. So, hurry up, because you have really good chances at this point, because we're only, I think, giving away 1,000 tickets, and 411 have been given away, and 415, something like that. So, get trading. Let's see. I'd love to see somebody out there that was on this chat with us win those 1,500 Octa.
I actually also want to say, you guys have a very unique community as well. I have to jump in there in Telegram. I take a sneak peek and just jump in. A lot of characters. I've seen some really passionate debates. I think that's really good. I really like it. It's very unique. So I think I wish, I hope Coinmetro deserves a lot more.
Well, we got some kinks to roll out still, but we're getting there. I think by the end of this year, we're going to be known more than we are now, right? And I hope that floats kind of OctaSpace to a higher level as well, because you guys are doing great stuff over there, and we'd love to support you. So thank you, everybody, for coming. As Tarik said, thank you for all the questions. I hope we answered them. I hope Terry, I didn't answer really anything, so I hope he answered them. If he didn't, you can tag
look, feel free to head over to our Telegram, and if you still have something, or even on Coinmetro, tag me. I'll jump in and answer.
Awesome, yeah. So tag over there. Just go to there, or you can come to Coinmetro as well and tag him there too. Why not?
Yeah.
You can hit him on both sides. See what he answers first.
Yeah.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thanks for joining, and see you on the next Join AMA. Cheers.